mean, just Google and you see how many the lists of policies that have been brought on the table gearing towards youth and specifically unemployment, and telling you one that has worked 50%. That means, therefore, and yet other countries copy this, go succeed, and we, the others, don't. So that, therefore, to me, means it is not an issue of even the mindset the minister is talking about. See? It is not the mindset. Mindset does not go as far as government's commitment to implement. It is not. I think the issue, we shouldn't begin, it is unfair to blame the victim. That you see these unemployed youth are actually the one, because their mindset is, that's not, I think that's not just. I think the appropriate government department should take responsibility. Okay, first do yours by properly implementing those policies, then blame the victims later. Two, I think also when you're crafting, and this is where probably, when you're crafting, you know, we talk about youth, we seem not to realize that these youth, first of all, have specific challenges. Because a challenge of an employed youth who goes to Honorable Amelia's office is different from a challenge of a youth who has never gone to school, who is in Kisogo. See? And two, the challenge of a youth who probably lives in Kampala and stays in Katanga, but can also afford to put on a necktie in the morning. You see, these are, I think let's categorize those. But lastly, Peter, just this. Peter, this is very important. Okay,
thank you very much. I'll turn to my left, to my right now. I'll take 4 from my right. I'll start with Arthur.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I want to thank our presenters, really. I think you have been spot on, but the time has not been enough, and I think we need to create more time to engage this one. But I think the starting point is to discuss that there is a problem, which we are trying to do, and then agree on the next steps. I think the next steps would be to socialize or decentralize these kinds of ideas and take them down and make them work. But I just wanted to make a small big problem. I think one of the problems that I identified is the youth capture by the political elites in this country, and this has been consistent from independence. The youth are a big resource. They have votes, they are energetic, and most of the politicians seek to capture them and use them, and sometimes misguide them. I think moving forward, we need both the political divide should see the youth as a potential for this country and actually develop the youth for developing this country. So remove politics from the youth. Moving forward, because of time, my suggestion is, I agree with Andrew, is that youth fund and other funds actually could be consolidated, and we move around this country and identify entrepreneurs, and through a competitive process, every part of this country could be 100 and throw them around this country, train them, equip them, give them some reasonable amounts of money, develop large-scale enterprise across the country, and employ the youth, and the youth will be developed like that. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll build on that, and I think I agree with the person who talked about the mindset of government. That one of the biggest problems I think we've had is politicization of many of these programs and looking at every program to yield political capital. And I want to start, look at the Dandikwa, look at how NADs have performed, look at, and unless we change that mindset, because we also set the pace for the youth to believe that this is political capital that you can take, use, after all, more will come. I think we need to deal with that. But my second point is about skills, the education system. I think the system itself undermines the confidence of the people that have gone through it. Because what is taught at the university to a person that is doing education is to go to class and teach. And from there, it's like if there is no class to go to teach, then education has been wasted. I think we need to go back and look at, if we are saying physics should be compulsory at all levels, probably we needed to rethink and say, maybe entrepreneurship could be one of those subjects that are compulsory. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the role of education is to impart skills, knowledge, and attitudes. But the discussion is tilted to skills in a way. Currently, there is a review of the lower secondary school curriculum to be rolled out in 2017. And in the spirit of interministerial framework, where the program manager's intervention should link with others, how are you linked to the ongoing reforms? That's one. Two, I think we also need to interrogate universities. If you assess our public universities, leave alone the private, they have moved from being centers of excellence but to being centers of infighting, fighting individuals, chaos. What does that have to do with the program? Is the program tailored to working with those universities, or you are just isolated? Because of the issue of attitude.
Thank you.
And lastly,
Thank you.
the issue of
Thank you
internship
very
and
much.
apprenticeship in that.
Thank you.
And I work with Uganda Youth Network. My program office with policy advocacy and engagement. Protocol observed. Very quickly, just 2 comments. One, and I'll pick from what Honorable Amelia Chambers said on addressing issues head on. My points are 2. The first, that we cannot continue to isolate a discussion on youth from the broader context of the nation. If you are talking about attitude change, you have to talk about investment in education, because education is fundamental in shaping and changing attitudes. If you're talking about education, you have to talk about increased investment to education. If you're talking about increased investment, you have to talk about curbing corruption to save monies that can be channeled to education. If you're talking about curbing corruption, you must talk about political will. So this isolated discussion, as if young people are in a context, is not going to take us anywhere. Can we mainstream these discussions? That's the first thing. Secondly, we make it seem like, youth is abstract there. I think for me, the issue of enabling environments is extremely important. What makes you think that a young person would not enjoy a 25-year-old tax, a 25-year tax holiday and use that to create opportunities and reduce them? I'm not saying chapati businesses are bad, but for me, where are we talking about crutches for young people instead of giving them wings to fly? I do not like this handout approach. For me, all young people need is an enabling environment. If young people in the US are able to run businesses worth $100 million, the innovation they have is in our young people, and people are doing amazing things despite of the policy restrictions. So I think just create an enabling environment. We do not, chapatis and what, those are by the ways. If you create an enabling environment, the things that young people can do in this country are amazing. And I think we need to focus on that.
Thank you very much. I'll go to the table right in front.
And saying, given the background set by Andrew Mwenda, where he clearly stated that basically has learned a lesson of understanding the mismatch of migration from rural to urban. Am I able enough?
Yes, you are. Please go on.
I see the minister a little disturbed. My voice. Okay. In Andrew Mwenda's presentation, he ably elaborated that there is something small that basically has taken advantage of the mismatch of migration from the rural to the urban. He said that. Now, as a minister of trade, that could have tickled you. In case he didn't, and at the risk of assuming that Bonaba Gagawale project really delivered us anywhere at all, do you at this point consider that the aspect of eliminating the cooperative movement would be contributing a little more than the circles that James is talking about, investing billions of shillings? Because it is demonstrated that the cooperative movement, though in the earlier government, had delivered this country. Do you as a minister today believe that some ideas of other governments could help you change your mindset? Thank you.
Thank you.
very much, Chairman. 2 points. The mindset change. As much as I concur with my brother Botba, that government needs to change as far as mindset is concerned. But I think we need also to change our mindset in as far as understanding the word governance. We still understand governance from the conventional way that governance, once you talk about it, you refer to state. Governance refers to the role of the state, the role of the civil society, the role of the private sector. Now, government itself has done its part, and you talk of poor education. If you want the Oxford and Cambridge, and you have failed to contain the UPE education, and you want the Oxford and Cambridge here, where will you put these people when they are Oxford and Cambridge trained? So what I'm saying, government has done its part. In fact, money spent even here this morning, I concur with the minister, would have had only the youth here. Let those who are successful tell their stories, tell us how they have been successful in life. Let me give you an example of my own children. I have 3 young boys. One is an engineer, another is an accountant. They are not employed. They are doing their own work. So this comes to the family. You who are family members here, who have children. Do you know that nurturing your children to have focus so that they have vision is more important than waiting for government to give them jobs? Because what is a vision? A vision is the art of seeing the invisible. If you teach your child to have focus, seeing beyond what is present, so that he can be able to do something when he gets the literal education. So the family is very important, and we need to understand governance. Please, private sector should do something. Civil society should do something. Accord, please. The money you get, why don't you empower the youth? Not necessarily getting degrees or creating employment, but showing them skills. So that is one thing. You don't look at state all the time. State has failed, but let the private sector work, let the civil society work. If you are disempowered, I have not seen the government stopping the private sector and the civil society working.
The point is made.
Peter, thank you so much.
The point is made. Honorable Melia wants to leave and she'd like to respond.
One after Karamaji.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter.
Yes, please go on.
Thank you. My name is Karamadi Andrew. I'm 25 years old and I'm a lawyer. I work with the School of Law Makerere. I'm depressed by the fact that a minister whose government takes 30% of my salary every month, I wanted to say every bloody month because it's not easy, every month is complaining and lamenting, and I wonder what me, an ordinary citizen, should do if a minister is lamenting. 2, why is government reducing us to tokens? We're not asking for rice hullers, for tables on which to make chapatis, we're not asking for bicycles. This is tokenism. We're asking for a protectionist tax regime that ensures that we're not competing with foreign so-called investors who are actually doing things that we can do. I have so much to say in so little time. Let me go to the next point. The unemployment question of Uganda is the scene of a violent robbery that has been treated as a rape or a murder scene. Who has privatized education, which has excluded many of us from public institutions? Education is now private. Universities, you have to be from a certain social and economic stature to afford education in Uganda today. And you're talking about the low self-esteem that the youth have when they come to your offices. It is a consequence of the comprehensive breakdown of social safety nets in this country. As I come to a conclusion, betting, what is the role of government? Wasn't it the government minister, the Minister for Trade, who proposed to lift taxes off betting and tax water, and then you blame the youth for going into betting?
Well, the Minister of Trade is here. If it was trade, she would be right here.
It's the same thing.
Okay.
The conclusion.
Yes.
Maybe sometimes the mistake that we make, we who discuss these matters, is to assume, and I say this with a lot of pain, is to assume that we have a government in place. The youth unemployment is a national security threat.
Dear Minister, there is a groundswell of desperation which is gradually mutating into militancy. If we want peace, we should avoid the pinpricks that precede the cannon shots. I have friends downtown. This is the final point, final sentence.
Well, downtown. That final 3 times,
yeah,
so
I'm sorry.
I'm as good as cutting you off. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Honorable Mayor, as you, I would have wanted to hear from Professor Bariamureva because lots of this has pointed at education. And if Honorable Mayor, before you respond, Professor Barry, lots of this comes to the quality of education we offer, to the quality of skilling we offer. And I mean, you don't have 3 former vice chancellors here, and one that runs a university of their own. Professor Barry, you're part of the huge problem. Aren't you?
Used a lot of time, but I say that the problem at universities does not start at the universities. It starts at primary school level, secondary, so garbage in, garbage out.
Thank you. Honorable Mary.
That's very true.
I'd like to thank you very much for all your... The issue of the education system is true. We need to have a reversal. We need to go vocational. We need to look at practical courses instead of just looking at... we need to review our system. That one I admit. And on the issue of youth livelihood, someone said, why do you just give out peanuts? But there's always a beginning. That is 1. 2, this is a private sector-led economy. You cannot run a public project. Because they said you can have a big project and employ. But public managing a business, this is a private sector-led economy. So maybe we could start looking at the amount given out to members. And then I would like to talk to my daughter. My daughter criticized me about Chapati, but remember when I introduced, I said there are categories of people. There is someone who is benefiting from that Ntandikwa. One person who was earning 5,000 shillings a day making chapati, and you equip him with this capital. Now they have grown. Some of them a week are earning now 500,000 because you have equipped them with a foundation. Let's work on our mindset, ourselves. We who are seated here, the youth who are in town, there are people out there who need this support. This support as a foundation. And they grow. They've actually grown and they've made a difference. It has made a difference in their lives. Someone criticized the policy of One Village, One Project, of giving out rice hallers or machines. That is capital. It is capital. Instead of giving them cash, this machine will help the entire village to be able to process their maize. It is a source for their maize. Instead of going to look for machines out there to pay, they don't have money to pay out there. Let them run this machine as a village, as a cooperative, and they will earn because it is capital, it is a foundation, it is an economic base. On the issue first of all, I wish I was given opportunity to speak. These are some of the issues that I've got, but I come here, I speak for 9 minutes. How could I have talked about other taxes? How do I have talked about the benefits and how someone benefits? I couldn't. I had to scroll through some of the issues and the categories of youth. Tokenism, betting, well, they say it's the same government, we shall review it. There are issues. We must say all governments are not perfect. That one we must understand. But we are represented, all sectors are represented in Parliament. So if we have these views, we could present them and we discuss them and see whether we can reverse some of these policies. Policies are there to regulate. If the policies are not appropriate, Bring ideas through your representatives in Parliament. And lastly, I did not lament. I did not lament. There was no lamenting here. I talked about issues because I felt we could find solutions to it. And I'm glad you have commented. I'm glad I've got ideas from you. So I want to thank you for having contributed to the issues here. And I've noted some of them and I'll follow up. But I think we need sometimes to tone down on the emotions in some of these issues. Sometimes we get very
It's an emotional issue.
It's an emotional issue, I understand. Okay, I'll also tone down. But normally, I need to have lessons on toning down because I'm also very emotional sometimes. So that's why I say we, because I'm also part of it. I thank you so much, and I love you, and we work together for the good of our country. Thank you for your contribution. I'm sorry I have to go. I was enjoying. I was getting heated up, but I'll come next time. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you. As Stuart says of the minister, the discussion still goes on. I'll take two more from us, and then the gentlemen at the table that are remaining will respond. As I take this, one of the people in the audience talked about security, and I will share. Between 2007 and 2009, on account, I did count about 6 demonstrations, riots, or whatever you call them. All of them shared one characteristic. When they started in one part of Kampala, they spread to exactly the same places. They went to Waisa, they went to Kazo, they went to Katwe. On this road to Ntinda, they would only go as far as Kamocha. Otherwise, they would go to Kalere, they would go to Natete, they would go to those suburbs. The worst of them, the 2009 Kayunga riots, were an interesting scene for me. Out of Kampala, I drove towards Gaba, and you would think you were in another country. There was nothing happening that side of town. Across town this side, when you arrived in Tinda, you went to heaven. There was nothing else. The single characteristic of the townships where the strikes or the riots most violent were, you had youth unemployed, youth desperate, youth angry, raging. Every time they looked at you, they felt you had taken their share of this life. I don't know whether I have. That youth has bulged today. And is it the youth we are talking about today? Is it the youth that Besije or Wako or Museveni will tap into to exploit their next political move?
Now, everybody was talking about attitude, and we tend to think that attitude has to be created maybe in my school or maybe in a forum like this, but attitude comes from a national principle which Uganda has not enjoyed. Uganda is a country of several smart people. There was Obote's Uganda, Amin's Uganda, now Museveni Uganda, you know. Everyone, what are Ugandans known for? So when you have a country which has no declared principles, you don't form the attitudes. I've lived in a country where no youth can accept a free lunch. You offer lunch and they are really suspicious. They won't take it from you. Kids pull money to go for lunch. And here, free lunch is so the idea of reconstructing Uganda is the way to go. We must sit down again and say what are those 5 values that define Uganda. Then you don't have to think about some youth ethic. Is it hard work? Is it honesty? Is it diligence? Is it punctuality? You can't be jumping from one point to the other. I wanted to persuade you to start thinking about reconstructing Uganda.
Thank you. I'll take the lady, Ashaka, and then James.
I work with the Uganda National NGO Forum. I know the Honorable Minister has gone, but my disappointment was that I would have rather heard from her how many jobs were created last year, how many jobs are going to be created this year and the next year, or during the 5-year term of the National Development Plan. Her presenting that was in the... James should be able to tell us that. Her presenting to us that Wenzile initiative is good, but really that's also what my mother does in the village. So, but she's not here to hear that. Secondly, since James is here, I would like to hear how many youth were able to access the different initiatives they talked about. We would like to know where those youth are, because up to now we don't know how many have been able to access all that money and how many are going to access it this year. We want some statistics.
Thank you. Yes, Hashaka, very briefly.
Thank you, Peter. It's true, youth unemployment